Welcome to our presentation. Chris and I are members of the Saxion University of Applied Science Educational Innovation Hub, and we will present to you today uh, our findings on the experience we do with professional identity development through community learning. And I will share the presentation that we prepared for this. It's a presentation, but we welcome your input. So please share your thoughts, your questions in the chat, and we'll address them throughout the presentation or afterwards. So we'll try to keep time to do that afterwards as well. So I'm sharing my screen. Let's see if that works. Can you see Yeah, it works. Great. So we're part of a team that includes Marike Lammers, Aldo van Duivenbode, Elise Eshuis, and Sharon Holteman as researchers. For those that don't know, I don't know how international this community here in this session is, but briefly, Saxion is a middle large university, but still has 27,000 students approximately. So I consider that big. And we're located in Enschede, Deventer, Apeldoorn, which is in the east of the country. Today, we would like to discuss with you the principles of the project that we did for the last 3 years with a grant, with a grant from the NRO, Comenius Fellowship. We have come up with a claim that we present here and that we will address throughout this meeting. Professional identity development through formal education benefits thoroughly from the individual exploring his or her unique talent in a learning community. So there's a couple ingredients within that statement that we will address. And we have learned from our many years in developing honors education. And the mission in this project that we did the last 3 years, which is coming to an end, which is currently in the finishing period, the mission was to share what we learned for the benefit of regular education. So we want to apply these principles on regular programs and regular students. We will, in this presentation, in the end, use the School of Health within Saxion as one of the bigger schools, or the biggest school actually, that is currently developing a new curriculum, a new design, and a new organization in an integral way. We will use that as an exemplar. And what we learned, I'll give this away right at the start, is that layered community learning is important. So it's not only for students, but it's for faculty, for management, and for the organization as a whole. This is the program, and Chris is going to start with the check-in, and after that, we'll present to you our honors approach model. Then we'll go to what we found for students, for faculty, for schools, questions and discussion, and we'll check out. So go ahead, Chris.
Well, let's start with a check-in, as we are accustomed to do in our presentations and trainings. We've got a question for you, and we'd like to ask you to express your response or answer in the chat. And the question is, what would you like to gain from this session? So take a short time to think about the question and your answer, and please share it with us in the chat.
So we hope you're here with a purpose, and we briefly outlined what we're going to discuss. What would you like to gain from it? Share it in the chat.
Insight into co-creation of the zone of proximal development. And Pierre is curious to what hopes to hear our experience with the transfer of honors to regular programs and what really worked.
Right.
I think we're going to talk about that in depth. Annelies is curious to what honors elements work well in regular education, also in bigger groups of students. Bigger sizes. Marta, to learn more about what inspired you to apply the honors approach for the regular student population. So more a motive.
And Sylvia says, what to do with the honors program if we apply it more to a regular program? What makes the HAP different?
Yeah. So when it's applied, what is the unique selling point of honors then?
Yeah, I guess that's what's meant. Well, we can ask her later. And Albert says, how should a teacher start this type of learning activity with students that are so used to presented content in class? Yeah, good question.
Good. Martin is curious to insight into what you mean with community learning and how you applied it. Yes. And Sylvia, Sylvia responds to our short talk. Yes, she means the unique selling point of honors programs.
Well, you got that right, Chris.
Here you go. Yeah. Okay. Are we going to share about how we do community learning, or what do we mean with it? I'm not sure. Niti?
Yeah, we can talk about it. I think the questions that I see here, or the statements on what you want to gain from it, I think most of it we address in this session. And if not, make sure you ask. And we might not have answers, so we're not here to have answers only. So what we also, Chris, we have our own answer to that question.
Yeah, we've got our own answer to the question, and that's, well, you're curious to our insight. We are curious about whether our findings are coherent with your experiences. So in translating or transferring the honors education to a regular population, whether you experience the same difficulties or the same pros or cons. So we're very curious about that, and we've got time in this whole presentation at the end of the questions and discussion to have a talk about that and to summarize with one another.
Right. So this is the claim we have: professional identity development through formal education, so regular programs, regular education, benefits thoroughly from the individual exploring his unique talent. So it's about you in a learning community. So I think that addresses also what the participants in this session want to get out of it. Like I said, we got a Comenius grant, and the premise is that we thought when we also put it in the application for the Comenius grant, that it could be better. It can be done better. The support for students at risk, particularly, that was our claim at the time, the support for these students can be improved. And later we discovered, well, students at risk in a very early stage in the first year of their bachelor education they're hard to determine, hard to identify. So we said, well, we need to address the population as a whole, and students at risk, of course, are included within that. So what we'll discuss now is how did we do that with insights from our honors perspective, with that experience that we have and the principles that worked through our own research. We also have in this project, 3-year project, we have worked on faculty development, which led to a professionalization program for educational leaders and managers, and for faculty as well. So for faculty, teachers, that you could say, educational leaders, and managers. And then we'll have the School of Health as an exemplar. Briefly, some of you may recognize briefly the model that we started out with that includes all the principles, the constituents of the honors approach that we apply, that we use. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but I start with the yellow ball on the left-hand side. Authentic, which means authentic, which stands for, and Ron addressed it in the presentation just now, the last presentation, authentic assignments, things in the real world, stuff you can work on that makes sense and that has meaning for you and society. So that makes education interesting. As well as I really like to do the things that I'm interested in. So it should be a match somehow. What you do as a student, content-wise, should fit what you want to do. And it's not always fun. It can be hard, can be difficult, but it should match. Then we work in and from out a community. So community is, we consider that to be a safe place where people can share things. And also personal stuff that motivates them, that is important for them. And with experiences from that authentic work in the community or from without the community, they reflect on that individually and with others. And that reflection is critical reflection. So with the intent to learn from it, with the intent, with the purpose to develop as a professional. But this development is professional development hand in hand with personal development. So that's the new thing. In honors approach, in our honors experience, we have discovered that students really want to and learn effectively if they can associate their professional learning, not instrumentally, but link that to their unique talent, to their personal interest. So that's how we looked and still look at the honors approach for regular programs.
Mm-hmm. And to make the bridge to what does this model mean to the regular population, we come up with some experience to see how these constituents within this model work within this regular population. And the biggest experiment we did was with a group of around 120 first-year students of 4 different programs. And these programs were social work, law, business economics, and chemical laboratory workers. And in this interdisciplinary setting, student coaching was offered for 1 year on every Wednesday morning, like the whole morning, 3 hours long. And students were placed in a small interdisciplinary group from the start on. So in that group, the focus was on in building a community that students really felt connected with each other. And then what they did during the student coaching were mostly, in collaboration with students, we designed authentic assignments. For example, students visited various neighborhoods to come up with and explore interdisciplinary issues, and also interviewed professionals and contribute to an online festival about democracy. In addition, within this group of students, they reflected on their own and each other's contribution to the work they did, but also on oneself. As Niti just mentioned, it was also about what is my talent within this group and how do I make use of that during our group work. And on the other hand, without looking at the authenticity, what does this issue mean to me? And why is it important to me? And then students talked about that, reflected on that, and shared their ideas. And also, so not just about the group work, but also making it personal. What does this all mean for me? And we've got many findings, but 2 were most interesting for this story, for this presentation to tell. And the first one is it makes sense or it doesn't. And this finding relates to the division within the students, that there was one group of students that was very highly motivated and enthusiastic to come up with ideas to explore during the module, while the second group was not so sure about what to do and why they should do it. They didn't see the connection between what we did within this experiment and their regular education. And it was kind of hard to grasp why there was no bridge. So, well, even though that it was there, students, well, really enjoyed the interdisciplinary assignments in real society. Well, going out and about to give meaning to their learning was something they enjoyed a lot. Fortunately, these assignments really helped students to and faculties to reflect on what does, well, learning mean to me, or what do these issues or assignments mean to me in, well, in a smaller perspective. So where can I put my talent into practice? So we could go to the next slide. Yes, well, we would like to go a little bit deeper into the make it makes sense or it doesn't, because that was one of the findings that mostly stick to our minds, and thinking about how we're going to bridge this gap in students, and well, what is the yeah the difference in that? Why don't we reach these students? And interestingly, we found that it was not only within the student, but also in the faculty. The faculty did, of course, apply the principles of the constituents of the honors approach. However, it was difficult for the faculty to place themselves in the shoes of the students, not per se that they didn't want to understand the student. They did, and they really tried. But the experience with what it feels like to be in a community was missing for some of the faculty. So it was harder for them to step really into the shoes of the students. For example, sometimes old behavior slipped through, such as sending just information in the monologue, or just deciding what the group should do. So taking the responsibility from the students, or as Albert said in the chat, well, just presenting content in the class. So such behaviors which are more prone to like the classical faculty role. In order to bridge the gap, we analyzed that it was quite hard for faculties to get a grip on students' self-directed learning skills, and therefore we thought, well, we probably need to support these faculties, and mostly focusing on the ability to vary their approach to students in order to connect with each individual, but also with the whole group, and to understand each worldview of a student. And that can be very different than the teacher or the faculty might have, in order to really understand what students are saying or trying to say. And to have a go at that, we designed and developed professionalization courses for the educational leaders and management, and also the faculty staff.
Right. Because what we went from the principle that what faculty want from their students, to open up and to share things, and to see connections between their personal motivation and what they have to do, or what they should do in order to professionally develop. In order for faculty to understand that and to ask that from their students, they need to deeply understand it by going through the experience themselves. So we said what faculty want from their students, they need to experience themselves. That is understanding, deep understanding. And that is the core of the professionalization courses that we designed. It includes a coaching on the process and not on the final result per se. We said, well, faculty need to be made responsible in the moment, so situational, so they can act situationally. So if something happens, what are you going to do with it? And that require, it's almost an art, right? So in the past, what we've seen a lot, and I'm generalizing here, of course, what we've seen apart, and what I recognize myself is I do the things that I decided I want to do in that session. But something might come up. Something might come up that is very important for one or two students, or a group of students, or part of the group. So we have to address that, and the group is part of it, and there's responsibility within the group for the well-being of one of the members. Learn to be really reflective on personal experiences. So that is what faculty and later also management goes through when they do this this training course. And be open, of course, in dialogue with others. Be open to a certain extent. You don't share what you don't want to share, but there's more to share than just content and instrumental stuff. And that brings me to the redesign or the develop, the evolve, evolution of the model I just showed a minute ago. This is the suction honors approach model that we developed. And this is the complex version. I go to the more simplistic version just to take you with us into what it says. Here you recognize the four balls again that I showed in the last model. Authenticity, real life projects, issues, working in a community, development, both personal and professionally, and critical reflection within the community. So these four constituents are still in this model, but we made it a more, let's say, process model with a collective result, trajectory, professional development in the upper arrow, and the personal development based on a learning question in the personal, in the lower trajectory, this arrow. And constantly, in a certain period of time, can be a year, can be a semester, can be 3 weeks, actually doesn't matter, but it's a set amount of set period. You start with a collective result track, and at the same time you go through this personal learning question track. So you learn on a personal level, and that both of them have some kind of outcome together. Now, and constantly during this process, switch in between both. So switch and connect from the cooperation on the content, on the issue, on the real world problem, with how did you do? How did you behave? What did you learn from it? How did it go? What are you going to do next? So this switch, this sinus that's in between here, that's a permanent thing. Chris, this is my thing also. I do this as well.
Go for it. Yeah.
Go for it. So for schools, and there's 14 schools within Saxion. What did we gain from this? What did we learn for school? It's layered. So we say this is important for students. But like I said, if it's important for students, then it's important for faculty. And a question that I know is in top of the mind of Albert is, how do we do that with faculty? Well, I say, let's take them through the process of, learning, because everybody's learning. That's our claim. Everybody's learning, whether you're a student or faculty or manager, doesn't matter. Everybody's learning, and we'll take faculty through this whole figure that I just explained as well. And that includes personal stuff, personal development that you share within the community and critically reflect upon. How did you do? So students, faculty, management, they all need to go through it, and they all need to understand it. You cannot ask things from your students, which we claim is important, if you do not understand what it is. And that includes management. If you ask things from your faculty, from your teachers, then you need to know what you're asking, and you need to have experience in it. Otherwise you don't know it. So that's actually an organizational thing. And it's an integral thing. You need to have a shared vision on learning in your school. You need to have a curriculum that fits what you want to do, that with activities that help to do it. You need a professionalization trajectory for your faculty, for your people. And you need to support their work, they're trying. And they make mistakes, and that's okay. So what we have learned for the organization, and in this case, we'll take the School of Health as a exemplar, Chris.
Yeah, we do. And we take this exemplar because Niti and I both work within this organization, and therefore are able to share our thoughts and influence the process within this school. And that has been a positive ride, because the school really wants to change. The whole school is under construction as well, the organization as the education. And the big shift within this restructuring is to create learning communities for students and for faculties throughout the whole course. And this change starts, as Niti says, it starts with the vision on learning, but also values that everyone um, supports or well stands by. And so these values are not just for communication, but they are really for living through. And the School of Health came up with 4 of these values. And the first one is all actions are intentional for learning by all involved and are thus the responsibility of both individual and collective. And the second is any interaction has the characteristics of a dialogue. And the third is confrontation with aspects of personal development is conditional to learning. And the last one, we cooperate based on trust, resilience, and possibilities. And just to stretch, these values are for everyone. So also for the management, also for the faculties, and also for the students. And that means that, as Niti says, everybody is learning. So even if a mistake is made, it doesn't need to get burned down, but rather have a conversation about and how are we going to cooperate and get further on and still be in line with these values. Nietzsche, do you have anything to mention
Yeah,
about this part? I see
yeah,
you bent over.
yeah. Well, these values, in a way, are the fundament, and it's rather simple. But first, you need to embrace these values with all people. So, and next, you need to act according to it. So it helps to ask questions, to go and to actually conduct this dialogue. What are we doing? What are we doing in the design of a new curriculum? Is this still fitting our values? Are we actually in our designs addressing personal development for students? Are we uh, 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 are we uh, actually in our actions as faculty as well, using these principles of trust, resilience, and possibilities? What we do now, what I do, is that in coherence with these values. So the values form a, let's say, framework for the dialogue and for all actions that anybody in development, design, conduction, and evaluation of all the work and all the interactions we have. So, Chris.
Yeah, well, I think you already mentioned it. It really comes down to the internal consistency in design and organization. And that means that, well, we don't, well, we should embrace it, but the current situation is not perfect already. So we need professionalization of faculty, but also of management in regards to these deep community learning, in order to understand and to grasp, but also make explicit within education how this works, and also during the learning processes of students, that you're able to coach or guide students through this process. And that means if faculties has to do it, then the management should understand how faculties work and should support that, and should therefore also understand how these community learning and other, well, professional identity aspects, um, well, influence the work of faculty. And what was the last one? Because Niti, you had a very nice bridge from the internal consistency in education, design, and organization towards the variety. And that, I think I remember it well. It's part of the question, not whether what should I do, like a faculty sometimes may ask, what should I do? Give me a presentation to present. Rather to what I do, is this consistent with the values we try to well, beam out, to show and to live through. Niti, your mic is off.
Oh, that's why. Okay. So you're right, Chris. So so if I can do what I deem consistent with values, but I think is necessary in this case, so I act within the moment, or I act within what I think is needed, then you will see that in between faculty, but also in between, let's say, learning communities of faculty, there will be variety. The variety will increase. There's going to be differences, and that's fine. Personalized learning cannot go without increased variety, but it has consequences for organization. So increased variety requires a new approach on organization. How do you deal with it? And so you cannot standardize like we used to. So standardization, as is interesting, of course, for any big institution or any bigger school, because it's efficient, comes into a new light. Standardization is problematic. It's still needed, but how are you going to do it? So variety controls variety. You need to not reduce variety, but appreciate it with new ways of organizing it. And that's a complex situation. And it's a big step that the School of Health is currently taking within Saxion. It's a big step. So community learning, addressing personal factors into professional learning, it's huge. Because this is an institution, a school with, I think, 1,200 students is big.
1,200? That's just, no, 1,200 are the amounts that students apply each year. So,
I'm sorry.
throughout the 4 years, I think about 6,000 or more.
Yeah. Well, it's big. Let's put it that way. So, are we at the question and answer and discussion session right now, Chris?
Yeah, we are at that point. So our claim is that professional identity development through formal education benefits thoroughly from the individual exploring his or her unique talent in a learning community. And this individual is a student, is a faculty, is a manager, is a dean, whatsoever.
I see there's a question from Elder. Is there a development in the approach from first-year students to fourth-year students? And this is a question that we might speculate on, but we don't have a clear answer on because it's still in progress. It's still actually in a design phase in the School of Health. We're still designing, and so implementation will start next year, and it's integral and it's big. It's really huge. But so we do not have experience with what fourth-year students do. But if I speculate on it, based on what I see within our honors programs, then I would say yes. There's a great development in students themselves, and of course that includes development in the way we approach them. Senior students take on a different role in communities. They will because what we do is communities stay together, but at the same time, senior students, they let's say they mature, they grow, and also they grow in the way they can have conversations and dialogue, and in the way they respond and reflect. So yes, the approach by coaches, by faculty, is different, of course, as well.
And just to add to that, because I'm working within the what do you mean, onderwijskunde, the instructional designers, the educational designers. I'm in part of that group, and this is indeed the point we are thinking about, and how does this role of this coach, the faculty, how does this relates to maturing student, with developing skills. And for example, having a dialogue requires you to listen and to understand and to get the meaning of what someone else is saying. And we presume that it's harder for first-year students. And of course, through training and also through doing the dialogue, you increase your skills in doing it. So therefore, these roles of students change, but also the role of the faculty.
And we did experiment. Chris, you were involved deeply with that, and from the Innovation Hub as well. We did experiment with students as coaches for junior students last year.
Well, just not experience. It was quite a big program among Saxion. They were called student coaches, and their coaching is mostly on well, on practical things, but also on some personal stuff, and also just be a listener to these first year students. And well, the first results are quite positive, and we don't have a 0 point that we can compare it to, but from the qualitative side, the qualitative research, most students were very enthusiastic about the student coach. There you see that the maturing of students really helped then the younger students to grasp the meaning of the program, but also themselves what I really want to get from this educational program.
Okay, I think we've talked enough, Chris. Let's ask Mary Van Nieboer. Maybe you can open your mic, Mary Van, and just it's a big story. So can you ask your question?
Yes, I can. I think my video, well, I started my video, but it's a bit slow, I think. So maybe I will pop up in a moment. I work at the Hanse University of Applied Sciences at Industrial Engineering and Management. And we are working on our new curriculum, and that is based on HIL, High Impact Learning That Lasts. And it's challenge-based, and so we want to work from real-life cases and let students work in groups. But what we find very difficult is how to grade individual, how do you say it, what the individual does and what the individual learned and what they contributed to the project or to the work. Do you have a solution for that?
I have ideas and thoughts and some insights maybe, but I have no clear-cut one-directed solution because I don't think there is one. So it's searching, finding, and learning. That's what we do, and I think you're doing that as well. And that's how we should do it. I think it's never done. So within our honors program, and also now with the School of Health and elsewhere, we're talking about what we call, let me think about it, oordeel forming. What is that? Coming to judgment. Coming to judgment, which is different from grading. Coming to judgment is more process-oriented. So it's not a test that you have to go through, and I already know the answer as a teacher, but we're talking about it throughout in the process of learning. And eventually in our honors program, as we do it, and it's still honors, right? But we're looking at ways to scale it up, to upscale it. In our honors program, we are experimenting and trying out how this can work if we have a final assessment. So still something like that, still just a moment in time where we all come together, and it's not only faculty but students, and together decide, can we be satisfied with what you learned and how you did it and how you present it. So coming to judgment is a new concept which is not easy, and it's difficult, but it goes away a little bit from clear cut written out matrices and such, and it goes more to process collective judgment forming ways. It's not a solution, I know it, but it's a way we're looking.
Yeah, I know, but it's so labor intensive, because I know from honors, we do this in honors, and well, we have regular talks with students, and you follow their process and they reflect on their learning. But with a larger group of students in the regular program, it becomes more difficult, I think, to do this with the same group of teachers. But well, it's a difficult, it's a challenge.
Well, Nita, you also, like last week or the week before, you mentioned the portfolio assessment, and not the portfolio is the assessment, but students make a portfolio during the time they work on a project, and they reflect on themselves and do all kind of stuff that contribute to their personal development. And then at the end, they have to write a piece of 1 or 2 papers or whatever, or show a video, or that summarizes their learning. And then you have a short peer assessment or an assessment with the group, just about that 1 page. And if there's something weird, or you think, this doesn't seem to be right, then you can go back to the portfolio. but you don't have to if it's clear for the student. That's more
So-
like a practical thing I heard Niti say last
Yeah,
week.
yeah. And you
Sounds
know,
good.
we're currently in the process of doing that, but in the School of Health, and you're right, Marivon, the scale is so much bigger. So we're looking in ways to trying to apply some of that principle to regular education in the bigger scale. So divide up the bigger scale in smaller communities, and what we call them thuisgroepen or student communities or home groups, which are groups that stay together for the whole education or a real long period. And these are the safe environments where people can share. And actually the main question in these home groups is, how are you growing as a professional, including your personal thing. So how are you growing as a professional? And so everything that you do, all the experience you have within the education, formal sessions and such, and even the grading there, because of course, grading on skills, grading on stage, clinical affiliations, and such,
Internship.
that type of thing is still graded also by professionals. But now, how are you going to use it, and how you interpret that in regards to your professional development? And that is the discussion that happens in the home groups, and in these home groups, we dedicate a lot of time to. So, and that's new. Because in the past it was like, okay, I have an SLP'er, some kind of coach, which is somewhere, and well, I know who it is, but, and you know, he or she had a session with students maybe once a quarter or something like that. That's going to change. We will have regular meetings every week with students, which are extensive in time and intense. And so there's a shift from really content-oriented education to more, it's still content, but more process-oriented education.
Okay, thank you.
There's a question from Sylvia. Sylvia, wow. Chris, did you read the question, or maybe Sylvia, can you?
Yeah, she's sharing her experience with. She's telling us that she's working for 6 years with project groups, and they experience a lot with the grading, sufficient or not, grading or not, and they tried, for instance, groups about points. Well, Sylvia, you're on the screen now. Please elaborate.
Go ahead.
Yes, we introduced project-based working about 6 years ago, maybe more. And we had a lot of discussion within the team about how to grade things and how to incorporate all the different subjects, because there are different competences in each project. And well, we're at the moment, what we do is that they're giving overall gradings for their the end product, and during the process they evaluate, and at the end they reflect on this, and there's an individual writing piece on that, and so they take into account, how did I contribute to this project, how did my own behavior and my own competences, how did I work on that to develop them. And we like that at the moment. So
Interesting.
Great.
And how does students, do they enjoy it, or is it hard for them, or how do they experience it?
Not every student enjoys it. But what you do get is that on an individual level, you have not as much of the the people who how do you call it, meefietsen.
Go along without contribution. Yeah.
They do not contribute so much. They just on the background and think, okay, this project, it will go on and on and on. But they are they have to account for their behavior, and they don't like this reflection. But
well, it's interesting. How did you prepare your faculty to be able to coach this process? Because it's sensitive, and it could go either way. We all give ourselves, we divide it equally or so, right? And that's not what you want. You want a deep discussion on contributions. And so how did you prepare your faculty for that?
Well, we introduced agile working.
Mhm.
So we worked in sprints for the projects, and the teachers, sometimes the teachers are the ones that give the assignment, but we often work with people from outside, companies from outside as well.
Mhm.
And that's really interesting how they see what the students do, and where the in between there are always evaluations halfway through or at third through, and then you see, okay, I need to pick up this thing, and it's much more coaching than yeah.
And you say students don't like it, but
Well,
do they
no,
appreciate it
no.
at some point? Did they get to understand why and how it works and how they benefit from it?
Yes, some see, most of them see the importance, and also the way that they're get the responsibility for themselves. They are responsibility for how the group works, and every single member of the group is responsible for that. And that is what we see. And in the second and the third year, we hear from the companies where they go on an internship that they're much more, how do you call it, zelfstandig. They work.
Wow.
They work
Great.
much. They have more confidence in what they can do, and they have more insight in what they want in an internship. So
Wow.
Interesting.
I really
Great.
like it.
Thank you.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. We get back to you later about the unique selling point of the honors programs. But first, the question of Albert. You've got 3 hours a week for this honors activity. I presume he's focusing on the thuisgroepen, the home groups of students to get together and reflect. Is it enough in the full-time program in health education? What is the connection with the other activities in the curriculum? As the home group is designed to that it's about exploring and revealing their professional identity through personal experiences, and these come from the education about all the health, etc. The core, the content of the education gives students experiences on projects and on working together. And in the home groups, the 3 hours per week, they reflect on these experiences and what they mean for them personally. That's a short answer. I don't know if that's enough, but maybe Niti can contribute to that. Maybe he has another perspective.
You know, everything you do as a student, whether it's within your curriculum, so within the education, or outside of it, could be relevant experiences. And relevant experiences, well, what is relevant? Well, we don't know until we start talking about it. So the dialogue in a home group is about that. What did you experience and what did you gain from it? And what are you going to do next, knowing what you learned from it now? So we consider also experiences within other activities within the curriculum as experiences that could be relevant or actually are relevant. But how do you deal with it? And it all comes together in the home group. Are there more questions or things we need to discuss or stuff that we need to share?
Well, Niti, we've got the question about, there's the presentation again. I've got the question of Sylvia. When we apply these honors approach within the regular education, what is the unique selling point for honors then? What do you think, Niti?
I have to think about this, Chris.
Oh, okay.
The
I do
unique
have a short,
selling. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
yeah, I do have a short answer, I think. Well, like, well, to make it very physical, all education, higher education is in like those big buildings I don't know even know how what it's called in English, but cement. It's very strong and
Concrete.
very strict and concrete, and there are boundaries. And I think honors is the place to open up, and so also get into the society and do the education within society. So not just a company with a problem, but more like the society problems that with climate change. You need companies, you need schools, you need volunteers, other citizens from the city, but also you need students, and they come together to learn. And I think that's the next big step for higher
Yeah.
education to get
Well, what
into
does that
that.
mean? What does that mean for students in the School of Health, Chris?
Well, this is more focusing on the honors program, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but I thought Sylvia meant, but I might be wrong. Is how do you uniquely sell it to application into the regular programs, into regular education?
Oh.
And Sylvia, correct me if I'm wrong, but interesting, I think, is what we address here, like professional identity development. So that is now central, and that is what is central in our honors programs as well. So how do you create a unique identity based on your unique talent, and everybody has a talent, one main big talent. So how do you identify that talent? How are you going to make use of it? How are you going to explore it further? And how do you help it form your professional identity? Then, and that goes through, personal learning. I think that's a unique selling point. That's a unique thing that's new in our learning community. So that all brings it together, I think. So we hope that we have, let's say, laid down the fundamentals for this claim. Also,
Yeah, but you do this in the regular curriculum.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we get at the Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences. More and more departments are integrating new techniques and 21st century skills in their regular education.
Mm-hmm.
So they say, so what's the point in the honors program? Because we all do this.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah. Okay. Then I have to go back to Chris's answer.
Yeah.
and the answer is actually, Chris, that what does the world need? That's a big question. What does the world need? And that is what honors programs. And if at some point, if there's no ground for existence of honors programs, then that's it. But I think there will be, because even the scale, even the intention. I think students that go into honors programs are students that want the extra step. And even though it's very motivating to be in your regular program with the new education, I think there's still people that are highly more motivated to do extra and different things, which, and I think that's what your talent should do, contribute to the world. And the question is how. I think that's a unique selling point. Does it resonate with you, or?
Yeah, we work with wicked problems in the regular education as well. So it's a bit, but sometimes, but I do agree that honors students go deeper and do more research and are having a broader view sometimes than regular students. Right.
And Sylvia, what would you answer to your own question?
Well, I'm looking for the answer, because that's the question we had from different departments, and So we're still thinking about it, how to change our honors program to be a pilot for the next generation again.
Sylvia, I
Yeah.
think that in the next 10 years, this will be an issue, a pilot for new developments in the regular program. That's very worthwhile. The first ideas about honors as a laboratory of innovation were from Marca and Pierre and me in 2004. And since then, it has been very worthwhile to see this development. And the regular programs need to be more innovated in the next years. So that certainly is a function of the honors programs.
Yeah.
Well, within 10 years, it may be different. And maybe we don't need honors programs anymore. But as Niti said, you still have students who like to do more than in the regular program is possible. And that may be a function after that. But in the next years, it will be a laboratory for innovation, I think.
Yeah,
we
still.
have to,
Yep.
yeah, thank you,
Thank you.
Sylvia and Albert.
Thank
We have to come to a conclusion. And Chris, we have one more last question for all of you.
Oh yeah, we do. To check out, please take your answer in the chat. We are very curious whether, yeah, in one word, what is your takeaway of this presentation?
And of course, we asked in the beginning, what do you want to gain? Well, did you manage to gain what you wanted from it? Of course, it will never be 100% satisfactory, but I hope we have somehow contributed a little bit. And it was very, very interesting to hear from your insights and your thoughts and your questions. So please put in the chat in one word or two or three. What is your takeaway? What did you get out of it? And what are you leaving with? Nice stuff I see in the chat. We appreciate all your input there. I think we need to wrap it up right now. So
Yes.
Martha, do you want to do that?
Yes, I will conclude the session. Thank you very much for this interesting session, Niti and Chris. I would also like to thank the participants who joined the session. I hope this session has inspired you as much as it did to me.